Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Abington Board of Selectmen's April 6, 2020 meeting. Ask anyone that can to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. First order of business is we are going to interview town manager candidate Lincoln Heineman. And Lincoln will be invited into this room and we'll know when he joins us. Welcome. And there is Lincoln. Can you hear us, Lincoln?
That's not good.
No, he probably just has to
it's connecting to audio right now. I see it.
All right. Lincoln, can you hear us? All righty. We can see him.
Can you folks hear?
Oh, we heard a little bit.
Sorry, I can't hear you right now.
We can hear you. You can't hear us. Let me see.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
I
Testing.
don't know. It's silent for me. I'm not sure why.
All right. I'm not sure why either.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I can hear you.
My apologies. Good afternoon.
That's okay. This is new. This is new. But Lincoln, I'd like to invite you into the Zoom room. I am Tom Conley. I am the chairman for the Board of Selectmen. I'm going to have people introduce themselves. Tim Chapin, you can't see him. He's on a phone. He had difficulty. He's up in Maine. Tim?
I'm here.
Want to introduce yourself to Lincoln?
Hi, Lincoln. Tim Chapin. I'm the vice chairman of the board.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Ken?
Yep. Welcome, Lincoln. Thanks for coming out. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Jim?
Hi, Lincoln. I'm Jim Conley. Nice to meet you.
Great to meet you.
All right. Kevin DiMaggio?
Hi, Lincoln. Nice to meet you.
Terrific to meet you.
All righty. So I just want to let everybody know on cable that Lincoln is our last candidate. He wasn't able to join us last time, and we sort of held everything up for these interviews and everything until Lincoln could join us. And we're very happy that he has joined us. Lincoln, I'll ask you to take a couple of minutes, probably 2 or 3, to introduce yourself and let us know what you can do for the town of Abington.
Good afternoon. Good evening, I should say. And thank you very much. And I want to say, first of all, thank you very much to all the members of the board for giving me this opportunity. I know it was planned, obviously, for last month evening, and I was very ill, and I really, truly appreciate the board's giving me the opportunity to participate. I'm extremely excited about this opportunity in Abington. My professional career, the entirety of it has been focused on government, Massachusetts government management and finance, and specifically municipal government management and finance, and even more specifically on the South Shore. I serve now currently as for now 2.5 years as the director of finance for the town of Hanover, obviously nearby. We can get into some of the more specifics on the things I've worked on there, but what I'm most proud of there and what I think what I know that I could bring most especially to the town of Abington is a transparent and holistic look, and in particular, really a zero-based budgeting look at a municipal budget, specifically on the South Shore. I can talk a little bit further later on, but we've done some great management pieces both to encourage efficiency in the town and then also encourage the public to know and to participate in those decisions. Briefly, I also serve as the Chief Procurement Officer for the town of Hanover. and certainly could bring those skills to Abington. I am now in conjunction with the town manager conducting labor negotiations with the town sides for unions, and have come to a handshake agreement with two of them for new 3-year contracts, and we're in the middle of negotiations for with the other two. And the final pieces I'll stress, and we can get into more specifics, is certainly have done a lot of work with economic development. As the members of this board probably know, the town of Hanover has a TIF, tax increment financing plan, with what had been Hanover Mall Crossing, and have been intimately involved in the implementation of that plan and encouraging overall economic development in Hanover. And just briefly about myself a little bit more, I mentioned in municipal finance and management now, but had served for many years for several years as chair of the Situate Advisory Committee, whose duties are the same in a volunteer capacity, whose duties are the same as the Abington Finance Committee. So certainly have budget perspective from the president and from the volunteer board member perspective as well. So Abington's an extremely exciting opportunity. I've been wanting to, I've been serving in many ways in conjunction with the current town manager, and have seen firsthand from the finance perspective all of the services that the town provides and the ways that it does that with both with human capital and with financing. And I'm really excited about taking that next step, being a town manager. Abington's Town Manager Act is really essentially the same in many ways as the town of Hanover. So I know the government, the system of government. And as I said, I'm a lifelong Situate resident, South Shore resident, and love this area, and would be thrilled to serve a community that's such a close-knit and nearby community as Abington.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to ask you a couple of questions. Each selectman will ask you questions, and I'll be going first. With this COVID-19 crisis, what is your role right now? What are you doing during this crisis for the town of Hanover?
Absolutely. Well, been very busy, but let me talk about a couple of the areas that I've been most busy in. So certainly the entire slate of the finance department's response and the finance responsibilities, and I'll talk about the specifics there. Most importantly, being sure that the community and that the first responders, we set up an incident command system in Hanover to address this, and the fire chief is the head of that incident command system, ensuring that the town manager have every tool available to save as many lives as possible. Clearly, it's a global pandemic. It's a threat to the entire region, and specifically to, obviously, to older folks and those with compromised immune systems. So ensuring that every financial asset is at the disposal of the folks who are doing the direct response, and ensuring that that is smooth, that we're cutting through any bureaucracy in a legal way, of course, while following the law, but cutting as quickly as possible through any bureaucracy that they may meet, so that they can assess and meet the critical needs directly as first responders. The other piece is two other pieces from a finance perspective. One is looking closely and being proactive about what impact this crisis will have both on the current fiscal year 20 budget, fiscal year 2020. Since fiscal year 2020 is largely over in terms of revenues collected and money spent, we're in relatively good shape, but putting a halt, I took the lead in putting a halt to all discretionary spending that was not directly related to the COVID-19 response, to ensure the first part I was talking about, that is to say that all the resources are available to save as many lives as possible. Secondly, we typically in Hanover have town meeting early May. And so we were towards the end of that process, had built the third of 3 budgets that I've built there in Hanover. And we're putting that to bed. And then obviously this comes and changes all of that. So being proactive, working with the stakeholders, specifically the Board of Selectmen, and in Hanover, the advisory committee, again, the same finance committee has in Abington, to recreate the budget, and with 2 goals. The primary goal being a lot of residents, a lot of taxpayers are really hurting. They've lost their jobs. We know that the jobless rate, initial job unemployment filings are higher than they've ever been at this time in the history of unemployment insurance in Massachusetts and in the country for that matter. So primary goal there is to limit to the extent possible, and I believe it may be possible, to eliminate any tax increase from fiscal 20 to 21 on the average residential taxpayer in Hanover. How are we doing that? Ensuring that all services that are being delivered as efficiently as possible, and making some judicious cuts, never letting a crisis go to waste, that is to say, in achieving new efficiencies. Secondly, putting off where possible capital projects that the town would have otherwise pursued, and ensuring that we're looking at other funding resources. And so that's really a planning piece to make sure that we're on a strong footing going forward. With COVID-19, there's just 2 other brief things I'll mention. One, with respect to finance, there will be federal reimbursement from this pandemic. To what extent and exactly what form, we don't know yet. But certainly there will be some sort of FEMA reimbursement. And so what's critical now is ensuring that we're tracking every single COVID-19 related expense, so that when reimbursement is available, to the minimal extent is that falling on the taxpayers of the town of Hanover. And if I was in Abington, we'd be doing the same thing for the taxpayers of Abington. And so that we're pulling down every single resource to minimize the impact on the property taxpayer. And that's critical. In the heat of things, responding to a crisis, it's hard to have first responders focus on doing that cost reporting when they're trying to save lives. But working with them and doing wherever possible my part to do that tracking so that they don't have to. And then finally, not directly finance related, but what I've been directly involved with, we're doing a department head every single morning meeting via Zoom, actually, to respond to crises that come up during the day with respect to the COVID-19 pandemic, addressing those collaboratively. The critical part that I've played there, in addition to the finance pieces that I talked about, is managing and building a resident volunteer list with all different skill sets, medical skill sets, including nurses, doctors, and then other folks who just want to help delivering food, delivering prescriptions to older people who should not be leaving their home now. So we've built a list of almost 250 volunteers, and we've been utilizing that list, making sure that they're checked through the criminal offender record information system and making sure that they're, that they can help folks and not be a danger to folks, and ensuring that they're there to help. And we've already been using it. It's been a great resource in making sure that we're responding to this crisis as fully as a community. So those are some of the direct things that I've been working on with respect to COVID-19.
All right, thank you. I had to put my microphone on mute for a minute. Sorry about that. Thank you very much. Tim, you're next, I believe.
Hey, Lincoln, thanks for joining us. Sorry you can't see my face tonight.
Not at all.
All right. By this point in the process, I'm sure you familiarize yourself with the town of Abington's budget. From the outside looking in a million miles away, what departments or line items strike you as possibly being overfunded, and what departments or line items strike you as possibly being underfunded, and what can you do to address it?
Sure. Excellent question. So I think in many ways, to know exactly what may be underfunded or overfunded, it's critical to get into place and really have a conversation first off with stakeholders. yourselves as the Board of Selectmen are obviously the policymakers of the town, and the town manager, as you know, is here to implement that policy. So, a critical question is, what services does the town want to provide, and what do citizens expect? And so, I think a key part of answering your question is, are there services with respect to possible overfunding? Are there services that the town is providing now that perhaps aren't as important to citizens as compared with another service that is desired? Certainly I know, for example, Abington has full day kindergarten. The town certainly to be commended for that. It was a cost, but I'm sure, there was a policy, discussion from you, the Board of Selectmen, from the school committee, and from the voters at large to look at, is full day kindergarten something that is desirable? And therefore, if so, what steps financially would the town manager take to implement that and to find the funding resources for it? I would say, in looking at, so again, I think it's a critical question when you're looking at possible funding, overfunding or underfunding of what services do the citizens, and does this board, as the policymaking board, really want to be sure that the town does provide, and focus on those and doing those as efficiently as possible. And then possibly unfunding a service that isn't as desired by the town. One specific thing that I'll mention, I know Abington is part of a regional call center with respect to fire, but I believe not police. And that's something that I've been intimately involved with in Hanover. There are very generous grants at this point from the state's E911 Commission under the Executive Office of Public Safety to make a full transition to a regional call center and realize savings through that. Now, we're recognizing that is a change that the town of Hanover wants to make to realize those savings and to achieve those efficiencies and direct resources to other areas where it's desirable. May not be necessarily right for the town of Abington, but that's something that I would recommend you folks as the policymaking board to look at and to determine, can we provide the same services for a lesser price, and therefore have funds to look at services elsewhere that possibly are underfunded.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you. Ken, I believe you're next.
I am. Tom, did you want to introduce KP Law's representative? I'm not sure if you did that.
Oh, I'm sorry, Brian. If I did not, I apologize for this. We're all new at this. So this is Brian Mazur from KP Law. Brian, want to just introduce yourself, please?
Certainly, Tom. Thank you. Hi, Lincoln. My name is Brian Mazur. I'm an attorney with KP Law. We're town council in Abington.
Terrific. Thank you.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good.
All right. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Ken. Ken, good job.
I just didn't want people to think that there's like a sixth Beatle. There's a sixth Lincoln.
Spy?
Thank you. I guess if you're lucky enough to get this job, as you said, after working on this job for, say, 1 year, what will people living in Abington likely say about you? Please share one positive comment and one negative comment that people might say about you.
Sure. Let's hit the positive first.
Everybody else did.
So, and this is something that I spoke about in one of my essay responses, and it's something I feel really strongly about, is ensuring that people know that I'm accessible. And I look at that in a couple different ways. Number one, accessibility to you, the board, and to other elected and appointed boards in town, and ensuring that that the elected and appointed leaders of the town know that the town manager is here to listen to their concerns and to implement policy. So again, we talked about the town manager's role of implementing policy, and this board and other elected and appointed boards being the policy-making boards. So ensuring that each board that has a policy area to work on has all the resources and the information that they need to make an informed decision. And then once that decision is made, ensuring that it's implemented in a timely and efficient way. So certainly, with respect to board interaction, the first thing I would do with every single board in town is attend one of their first meeting on the first time that I'm on the job, to make sure that they know who I am, that they know when they see me around town, they can stop me. That here's my telephone number. You call me anytime, to make sure that we have that rapport, first of all, before you get into an issue, so that you have a personal interaction. And the first personal interaction is not, hey, we have this problem to solve, but rather, hey, you came to our meeting and I really appreciated it, even though there wasn't anything for the town manager to do there per se, but to make sure that we knew who you were and that we could contact you. Secondly, with respect to members of the public and at large, the positive piece that I want them to know is the same sort of accessibility. One of the first things that I would want to do on the job with the approval of this board is to pursue a type of listening tour, to make sure that any concerns that are out there in the community that may not have been addressed, not necessarily through anyone's fault, but that, sometimes when someone's in a position for a long time, they simply, they're maybe blind to a particular issue. So making sure that different stakeholders are aware of who I am, see me around town, and know that I'm accessible. And then finally, from a positive perspective, from department heads and employees with the town, ensuring regular open door communication with department heads. There are sometimes an open door policy is difficult when there are a lot of direct reports, but the way that the town of Abington is structured, in my opinion, that's certainly very doable to have an open door policy with the number of direct reports to the town manager, and ensuring that A, there's an open door policy, but B, there are regular scheduled check-ins with each department head. And even if there's nothing to talk about, even if you've done it all, you do it, you spend 5 minutes and you sit down and make sure that I know what they're working on and they know what my expectations are. Right now, we do that via Zoom or on the phone, but hopefully in person real soon. And then from the perspective of, so I just to reiterate the positive pieces, I think folks in town, and specifically elected and appointed board members and town staff, will know who I am, how I'm accessible, and what my management style is, and that I'm there to help and listen and implement policy, and making sure that the town is being responsive and delivering services in the way that the citizens expect. With respect to a negative piece, I think, let's see. I guess I will say this. I wouldn't see this as a negative, but it is something that there's different perspectives on it from town managers, town administrators. I live in Situate. I know the South Shore extremely well. I care about the South Shore. I spent a lot of time in Abington. I care about Abington. I think sometimes there's a dynamic where citizens want the town manager to live in town. Personally, I don't really necessarily think that's a good idea, because when you live in town, you're a citizen, and a citizen is entitled to an opinion on a policy. I may have opinions, and I will have opinions on policies, but my opinion on a policy is it doesn't matter. What matters is you, the policymaking board, and other elected, appointed boards, and for that, and by extension, town meeting in Abington. So my role is not to determine the policy and be a citizen and have a direct stake in it, but rather to learn and what the public and what the policymaking boards of the town want, and then implementing that and providing information so that that decision on your folks' part is fully informed, and then quickly and efficiently implementing that policy.
Okay, thanks. Jim, you're next.
Hi, Lincoln. My question is, in the event Abington finds itself in dire financial straits, would you resort to layoffs, and what would your criteria be to do such a thing?
Sure. Well, certainly as a last resort. That said, there are, as this board knows, the primary expense to municipalities and any organization for that matter, but really especially municipal, local government, is salaries. So in a extreme economic downturn, which, obviously the story's out right at this moment, but we don't, but we don't know where the future's coming. I don't think we're there yet, but we may well get there. In an extreme economic downturn, sometimes there simply isn't a choice, because so much of the town's budget is delivery of services, and services are delivered by people. And so, if the revenues aren't there, then they aren't there. And so how do you handle that? Most importantly, you have to protect morale to the extent possible. If employee morale takes a real hit, there's very little that a manager or anyone can do to improve it, except over time and showing that those employees are cared about. And so the difficult decisions to be made, if they do have to be made, are looking specifically, this earlier conversation we had about service delivery. What services are most important to the citizens of Abington and to this board to be delivered? And if there are services that perhaps aren't as desirable as others, those are the ones that need to be cut if indeed cuts are possible or necessary. Secondly, first it's that look at which services are most important. Secondly, after that is looking at, you have to look at past employee evaluations. You have to look at how employees are doing. You can't just where union agreements allow for this. Some union agreements, seniority rules, and you have to follow the union agreement. But where that doesn't rule, you have to look at past performance reviews. Those are difficult conversations. They're extremely difficult, but in that kind of situation, they need to be had. One last thing I'll mention with respect to possible layoffs is there are many opportunities to avoid layoffs unless necessary. And there's all kinds of techniques, and some of those techniques are certainly the ones we're looking at now in Hanover. So one of them is looking at alternative funding sources. For example, most towns have a library trust. Most towns have drug forfeiture monies from both the federal and state government. Being creative about what funding sources are available is key. Another is, are there capital items that the town can put off? And it's more desirable to deliver this service and not have that layoff than having this capital item and delaying it for a few years. And so those are sort of the key, I think, considerations when you're looking at layoffs or the possibility of layoffs. One final thing I mentioned, which is that I mentioned earlier, don't use a crisis. Don't let a crisis go to waste. And 10 years ago, 11, 12 years ago, during the last big financial crisis that this country experienced, I worked at the governor's budget office. And the thing that I always stress there is, and we had similar issues with budgetary constraints and very difficult decisions that had to be made about personnel. And the biggest piece, in addition to that service delivery piece that I talked about, was really looking hard at what services are being delivered. Are they being done the most efficient way? And sometimes the answer is no. And it's difficult to make a change that a lot of people really know is necessary in good times. In bad times, it's not the opportunity to cut everything 2% or 3% or whatever it is across the board. It's the opportunity to look really creatively and critically at what the town does and doesn't need to do, and making difficult decisions if they have to be made. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Kevin?
All right, Lincoln. What is your plan for economic development and growth in town if you were our town manager?
Sure. Well, I think, the biggest immediate concern with respect to economic development is looking at the COVID-19 pandemic and thinking creatively and proactively about the fact that, many of Abington's small businesses in particular are under immense strain right now, and they'll continue to be depending on how long this crisis lasts in its current format. So the most critically important thing from the beginning is to maintain what the town has, and to do everything in the town's power to maintain businesses and helping those businesses, existing businesses, stay in business wherever possible. Some may not, but making sure that that they know that the town is here as a resource. The other two, I think, critical components are getting, on a longer term basis, is getting and having a real open process about what citizens and what policymakers want out of the widening of Route 18. And, on a longer term basis, visioning what does the town want that to look like? Is the town as a whole happy with how it looks now or not? And if not, use the opportunity of a widened Route 18 to work towards having it look like the citizens want it to look like, and how the policymakers of the town look like. And then, the final piece is Abington's fortunate to have a commuter rail station and to have already many businesses in the mix in that area. And I think, that there are lucrative state grants that I've worked on in Hanover getting, and also in Situate, actually. There are a series of state grants that encourage higher density housing and higher density commercial activity near transit oriented stops like the commuter rail station. Again, it's an option to pursue for the policymakers of the town. Not my decision about whether or not it's desirable to pursue that, but to envision and to have public input about what the public wants in particular areas with both the Route 18 and the commuter rail station piece. And then once it's decided what the town wants that to look like, pursuing grant opportunities, pursuing the hard work of zoning changes if necessary to achieve the goals that have been identified by the citizens.
Thank you.
All right. Good, back to me. Here's I have my notes. I guess one of the toughest questions to ask Lincoln is this one here, maybe, and maybe not. But during this crisis, whatever, everything that's going on, when do you think you would be available to come to Abington?
Very quickly. So,
okay.
So, but let me give you a little bit more of an idea. Obviously, an important part of the team in Hanover, especially with respect to budget and the volunteer pieces we were talking about. So, I have an excellent relationship with the town manager there and the chair of the Board of Selectmen. I believe that if I was fortunate enough to be offered this job, I could work with them to continue to do my Hanover duties for a little while and make a pretty rapid transition from there, while still doing some work even before I'm an official employee of Abington, doing work on the side to make sure that we have continuity of operations and are moving Abington forward through this crisis. It's there would have to certainly be a conversation that I'd have to have again with these two folks who I have a good relationship with, who are aware that I'm a finalist for Abington. And, we've already sort of had a quick conversation about what that transition would look like, but certainly as quickly as I could, as possible. And in the interim would certainly be available and would want to do work for Abington on the side as I'm making that transition from Hanover.
Okay, thank you. Tim?
Lincoln, we know that the town manager position is not a political one. How important, if at all, is it do you feel for the town manager to integrate himself into the community? What steps will you take to accomplish it?
Sure. Well, it is absolutely, as this board knows, not a political position. And in fact, I'm a member of the International City and County Managers Association, which actually has very specific prohibitions on my interaction and my contribution to the political process. So I wouldn't intend to have anything, directly to do with politics in Abington or anywhere else. With respect to the integration within the community, we spoke a little bit about how I'd want, it'd certainly be seen around town, would want to engage in that formal or informal listening tour that I talked about. One other thing that I've been very involved with in Hanover is the creation of a new communication specialist position, not funded through another funding source, not funded through tax dollars, but that has been critical in ensuring that the town, that timely, relevant, concise information is available through various social media platforms from the town. So not just the website, but also the Facebook page, also Twitter. He's even beginning to do some Instagram, but a lot of it focused on Facebook. And a lot of that is, and this crisis has actually facilitated some of that because, for example, all the Board of Selectmen meetings and several other meetings have been live streamed on Facebook. And in some cases, we've been doing a daily show on Facebook that's available to people and taking questions live from the Facebook audience while the show is happening, having that interaction. So again, I think having both being seen physically around the community, I certainly intend to be there not only during the week, but during the weekend too, at around the ball fields around town, at community events so that people know who I am and know I'm accessible. And then the online piece, the Facebook and so other social media interactions are critical for citizens to know town hall isn't just the place I go and pay my taxes and register to vote, but it's also a place dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. It's also a place where where I can get my rabies shot for my dog. It's also a place where I can do something positive, not just not just something I have to do. So I think those are the two critical pieces: both being seen not just in a government context, but on the weekend again, or at night at events that aren't political, and then online and having that be a robust presence.
Great, thank you.
All right. Ken?
Lincoln, you touched upon Route 18 a little bit. There's some other major issues coming forward in the town. We have a trash contract that's going to be up, I think, next year. Obviously, the old South Weymouth Naval Air Station is something that we have to look forward to. Police chief, a police chief search at some point in the future. Do you have any experience in any of these issues, I guess, is my question.
Sure. So certainly with respect to the redevelopment, I can touch a little further on the tax increment financing plan with that the town of Hanover has with now Hanover Crossing. So that's not something that's just sort of directly related to the old South Weymouth Naval Air Station, but certainly there are key components that I know I could bring to bear that my previous background and skill set could bring to bear as we're looking at economic development there. And then having layered on top of that, the interaction with officials from from our two neighboring communities as well. So from Weymouth and Rockland. So I think the key consideration there, and I should say, with respect to the Hanover Mall, there is that tax increment financing plan that have been critical in getting in place. There's a very complex process, a planning board process of permitting that we just went through that I was an important part of on the town side to get the new project completed. And then it is also relevant, that experience in handling handling Norwell, since some of the mall property, the old mall property is in Norwell. So interacting with other municipal leaders is certainly another relevant piece that would certainly be directly applicable to the old South Point. With respect to the widening, certainly that's been a discussion that I've been part of with the state in Hanover of the possible widening of Route 53. Similar issues. Abington's fortunate in that the project is going forward. That's sort of in the very early stages of Route 53, but working on the traffic studies, working on directly with the state cohorts. I worked for the state in management and finance positions for 10 years and know a lot of the players at the Department of Transportation, in the governor's budget office, and at the State House, in order to already have those relationships to achieve some positive goals for the town. And then with respect to contract negotiations, so certainly mentioned, the union contract negotiation experience that I have, and have also been somewhat involved in contract negotiations with our police chief and fire chief, which were up and were recently renegotiated. So, so I think certainly, and I've run, I don't know, countless, I'm not sure how many job searches, nationwide job searches, I should say, where necessary for various municipal positions. Have been the hiring manager for that. So certainly have some good history and experience in making sure that postings are out in the right place, that viable candidates, I know a lot of the folks might be viable candidates in various areas, particularly in the South Shore, and reaching out directly to possible viable candidates, looking internally in the police department and paying close attention to who the internal candidates are, who might be good candidates, and encouraging those candidates where possible. So I certainly think it's in my skill set and could achieve success there.
Thank you, Lincoln.
All right. Jim?
Yeah, Lincoln, I'd just like to know, do you have any experience with building municipal facilities? And if you do, what was your role?
Sure. So I have actually both from the Hanover perspective and the Situate perspective. So I'll talk about Hanover first. So the town of Hanover recently did an entire renovation and addition to one of its elementary schools, and is now in the process of figuring out final disposition for the old building, the almost 100-year-old building that is no longer going to be used. And I've played a key role in that. The primary role with respect to the renovation and addition has been getting, has been doing I mentioned I was the chief procurement officer for the town, and making sure that the procurement law is being followed to the letter. You do not want challenges in procurement, public procurement, especially in public construction. The other key piece is the financing. The financing of these projects is very complex, as I'm sure this board knows, and I've been the person who has been figuring out the debt structure for this and other pre-existing projects, taking advantage. One of the things I've been really focused on from that perspective is is putting together our debt, our existing debt, in such a way that, to the maximum extent possible, the town is taking advantage of this extremely low interest rate environment, and ensuring that the town doesn't spend $1 more on debt service than absolutely necessary, locking in lower interest rates where possible. And then, there's the disposition of the building. We're in the middle of that conversation with policymakers about what does the town, and specifically the policymaking boards of the town, want out of that building. Is it senior housing? Is it sale for commercial development, et cetera? And having an open conversation about it. Well, one other thing that I've worked on in Hanover that would certainly be directly relevant to the Abington experience and to what's coming ahead for Abington is we in Hanover are in order to meet the National Fire Protection Association's guidelines for how quickly EMTs should be arriving when there's a medical emergency, or for that matter, when there's a serious fire situation. That indicates that in North Hanover, there should be another fire station. Really effectively, there's only one real fire station in Hanover at the moment that's not used for storage, that is actually really day-to-day used as a fire station. And so in order to respond to that need, I've been involved in acquiring a piece of land through tax title. I'm the treasurer collector for the town, so I'm obviously intimately involved in the tax title process. And then being support, the Board of Selectmen has taken what I think is a good tack by appointing a fire station study committee and of citizens from various boards and members at large to look at, to re-examine from an outsider's perspective what the need is according to the National Fire Protection Association, if a new station is needed, where it should be located, and what it should look like, and how big it should be. Certainly, have been a critical part supporting that community's work. And then one other thing I just mentioned from the Situate perspective, was chair of the Situate Advisory Committee and was very involved in the review of a complete rebuilding of a middle school, a brand new middle school from scratch in Situate, and also a brand new combined fire and police headquarters in Situate. And again, the siting issues in town, where's the best site, both from a emergency response perspective and from land that's available to the town, looking at cost, looking at size, et cetera. So certainly do you believe I could bring that knowledge to bear in Abington, and especially as Abington, has the consideration about what its future fire department needs are with respect to buildings.
Thank you.
Kevin?
So Lincoln, once we hire a new town manager, something I'd like to see would be, I'd like to see them zero out the budget and rebuild it. How long do you expect that would take to rebuild, and how far out would you fund the departments in order to get this done?
Yeah, so certainly, that would be extremely difficult to achieve for fiscal year 21, since we're this far along in the season, the budget season. Not to mention the fact that obviously the primary concern for any new town manager will be addressing the COVID-19 emergency. But I definitely think, with the support of this board, that it is absolutely doable for fiscal year 2022 budget. It would require working with first of all, a new town manager, in order to create a zero-based budget within that time frame. A new town manager, first off, would need to achieve those good relationships with department heads and with you, the Board of Selectmen, quickly. I talked about that some before. I feel confident that I could do that with the outreach that I talked about earlier, and with building trust quickly. Because in order to have an effective zero-based budgeting process, you need to have trust. You need to You need to have each department head and their staff trust you and trust this board, and by extension, this board, so that they aren't hiding this piece, and it's not a malicious thing, but that, they're worried that, yeah, this is something that we don't really need to do, but if I give this up, I'm going to get cut, and I don't want that. But instead, building trust early, and so that they know that, yes, there is a real conversation to be had about whether or not we need to provide the service, but no one is going to be personally penalized for having that conversation. In fact, you'll be rewarded for coming up with this idea for reform. So it's building that trust, and then working directly and very early this fall at the latest. And again, I think it depends on the COVID-19 emergency and how much resources the manager would need to put into that in the immediate term. But even in the summer, certainly by the early fall at the very latest, we need to work with the department heads very closely, and again, having buy-in from this board, it would be critical in building up from that baseline, what each budget is. It's something that we've done. I would say I've done something of a modified zero-based budget in Hanover once. I did it separately for the state budget, and specifically when I was working there in the governor's budget office. It can be done. It needs, but again, it needs buy-in and trust from the department heads, which I know I could build, and buy-in and trust from this board, which obviously there's an interest in doing it, but making sure that the entire board is on board with doing it.
Thank you.
Okay, good. And not last, but I believe we've asked all the questions. If not, please, any of the board members have any follow-up questions or questions that we did ask that I missed? I don't think I did, but
There was one question, Tom, that we asked all the candidates, and that was the town manager that we have now is currently in place. I guess the question that we asked the other candidates was, we would probably keep him on until you feel comfortable. Would you be threatened by that, or would you have a problem with that, or do you think that's not in the best interest of the town?
I mean, certainly during the transition period, until if I'm fortunate enough to be there, became the town manager officially, and transitioning over from Hanover, that would be critical, and I certainly expect and would want very much to have that interaction, and to get that feedback about where the bodies are buried, so to speak, and have that open communication. I do think that that's difficult when the new town manager is officially in place. It's up to this board what tack to take. I think it's difficult, and for a simple reason, not because of any individual whatsoever, but I do think it's difficult just because employees in the town need to know there's one boss, not two, and that there's one person to go to, and there's not different possibly competing power centers. I'm not saying they would compete, but it's sort of inevitable that they might. So, but again, that would be my take on it. That would be perhaps my recommendation, but it's this board's decision.
Good answer. Thank you.
all right. Again, any other follow-ups? I'm going to go in order. Tim, anything?
I have nothing further.
All right. Ken, you all set?
All set.
All set. Jim?
I'm fine, thank you.
All right. Kevin, anything else?
All set.
All set? All right. Okay. Lincoln, thank you very much
Thank you.
for taking your time. Again, we've interviewed all the candidates now. We've done part of our job. We have a lot more to do. But I'd like to thank you, and I'd like to give you an opportunity to sort of do a closing statement, not only for the Board of Selectmen, but for the people in the town of Abington. So if you would do that and take a couple of minutes, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. Thanks for the opportunity. And thank you again very much again for the opportunity and the opportunity to have the scheduling on this night. I truly appreciate it. You know, I know that let me back up. You know, as I mentioned, I'm a lifelong Situate resident, lifelong South Shore resident, have spent a lot of time socially with acquaintances and friends in Abington and know the town quite well, and love it. It's a beautiful town. The opportunities are boundless for the town of Abington, and I am in you know, the correct profession for me. I know that I can do this job. I know I have the budget experience, the management experience, the procurement experience to be everything that the town of Abington needs to go in a new direction at the direction of this board, and to achieve great things together. You know, the town of Abington's already great. It can become amazing. And so I think you know, again, I know that both with my personal background and my professional background, that we'd be a good fit. Again, care about this region a lot. We'll be here regardless of you know, where my professional life exactly leads me. I care a lot about the economic development, about the future of this region, and Abington is a key part of that, and will always be a key part of that, in particular, you know, with respect to the economic engine of the area. So I know I can bring that management experience to bear, and you know, I hope I have the opportunity to work with you folks on the board and with the citizens of Abington, who again I've come to know and love over the years.
Okay. Thank you. Nothing else, gentlemen, correct? All right, then Lincoln, thank you very much, and we'll be in contact with you shortly or soon anyway.
Sounds great. Sounds great.
All right.
Again, thank you so much, and have a nice evening. Thank you.
All right, you too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
I'm not sure how to leave.
I get down near the bottom of your
Oh, there you
screen.
go.
I think it-
Thank you. Thank you. Have a nice night.
All right, you too. All right, so that is the final candidate, Lincoln Hindman from Hanover. So you all have the agenda, I'm assuming. Discussion and possible vote to select town manager contingent upon contract negotiations. I'll open it up for the floor if you want to do nominations, or if you want to do a little discussion first. I'll leave it up to all of you.
I'd like to thank the search committee first. They certainly did a great job. They didn't make our job easy. They gave us 4 great candidates. Kudos to them.
Yep, they did an excellent job, definitely. Definitely. Tim, anything?
No, just repeat what Jim said. Really, it's going to be a tough one because they did a great job giving us 4 great candidates, and so that's all I got.
All right, Ken, you want to wait or?
No, I'm ready to, I think we should just put some names out for nomination, if that's agreeable to the board. I thought the one candidate that impressed me the most was probably the only candidate that really had some experience at a town administrator and in the financial aspect. And so I will place the name of Jeremy Cottle in nomination.
All right, Ken has put
I'll
that.
second that.
Who seconded it?
I will second it, Tom.
Tim, okay.
Yes.
All righty, any other nominations?
Yeah, I thought Scott Lambiase was a good good choice also. I like to throw his name in the hat.
All righty. I will second that. Anybody else want to second it before me?
I can second it if you want.
Okay, Ken, if you would, I'd appreciate that.
Yep, I'll second that.
Thank you. Any other nominations?
I'd like to put Lincoln Heineman in nomination.
Okay. Do we have a second for that?
I'll second that one, Tom.
All righty. Any other nominations? Any others? Okay. If not, then we have 3 in nomination. Hold on, I gotta grab my list, sorry. We have Scott Lambiase. We have, hold on one second. We have Jeremy Cottle, right?
Yep.
And we have Lincoln Hyman. Right? So we have 3 candidates. So do you want to vote each candidate now individually? Ken, you comment on that, or?
The only thing that there may be a tie for maybe 2-2-1. And if that's the case, what does the board want to do on that? You know?
Should that be the case, I think we should re-vote with just the 2-2.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Hold on one second. Tim, comment again, because I don't think Kenny heard you.
Okay, I think if should the vote be 2-2-1, then we should take a re-vote with just the 2-2. The 2 people, the 2 candidates that got 2 votes from the board.
That's agreeable to me.
Okay, and we all know that this has to be a majority, and that would be 3, correct? Okay, I just want to make sure.
That's correct.
All righty. All right.
Should we just ask town council, since he's here and he's on mute and he's falling asleep, if we can get some, what we're doing?
He's not falling asleep. I've been watching him the whole time.
Brian was yawning an awful lot, but does that sound like a good way to do it, Brian?
Just if you could clarify the process, just so that I could answer it, appropriately.
So you were asleep, okay. Yeah, there's 3 candidates.
Just kidding.
Now. And my question is, if it becomes a tie vote, 2-2-1, which may not happen, but if it, I think the board has decided that whoever just got the 1 vote would drop out, and then it would just be the 2 candidates. Does that sound right, members?
That's correct.
Well, so as far as I understand it, the board has nominated 3 of you had 4 finalists, and you've nominated 3 to be appointed as town manager.
Correct.
Okay. And is there going to be a circumstance now where the board is going to vote on each nomination to get down to a list of finalists?
Tom, I would just say, people just, you name the name and people vote, I would think, but I mean.
I would agree with that, you ask the name and then we'll go from there. And
you
then,
can only vote one.
To each one, yep.
Okay. So if you vote for each candidate, so if you made a vote to appoint Mr. Lambiase, and the question is if 2 board members voted in favor, 2 against, and one abstained?
No, if the vote, there's 3 candidates. If the vote is 2 votes for one person, 2 votes for another person, and 1 for the 3rd person, how will we proceed?
Yeah, so the 3rd person would just drop out.
Okay, all right.
Right.
Yep, that's what we discussed. I just want to make sure that was correct.
Okay, all right.
All right, this is going to be a little difficult, and we are on television. But we did interview all the candidates, and it was definitely a tough choice for all of them. But So Ken, you made the first nomination. So,
I would vote for Jeremy Cottle.
okay. I guess I'm gonna have to, I'd rather just take a voice vote or well, Tim will be a voice. Tim? Well, I'm sorry, to second it, to vote for that.
Well, I don't think he needs a second now.
Say what?
I don't think he needs a second now. That's just the vote.
Oh, okay, so, all right, so all those in favor of Jeremy Cottle, again, individually, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So that's 2. All righty. Jim, you nominated Scott Lambiase. All those in favor of Scott Lambiase signify by saying aye, starting with Jim.
Aye.
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 That's
Okay.
affirmative for me too, Tom.
Yep. I got that. Okay, and Lincoln Heinman. Kevin?
But
Yes.
Vote, please.
Tom, isn't that it? We already had 5 people vote. Didn't you not? Didn't we?
I'm not sure what you
We
mean.
did.
So there's already 5 votes been given, so.
But don't, maybe I missed something, Brian, maybe I missed something. But if Kevin, if he votes for Lincoln, I don't know if you would or not, wouldn't we have shouldn't we have everybody vote on that, Brian, or not, or?
I mean, that was what I anticipated the board was going to do, that you were going to take individual votes to get down from, say, 3 to 2. And then those 2 individuals who were remaining would be the 2 finalists that you would then vote on. So the fact that one board member voted for Mr. Cottle, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, to proceed on to another vote wouldn't prohibit that same board member from voting for Lincoln to proceed on to that vote, to that final discussion as well. I would just suggest, in light of the fact that you're operating remotely and sometimes the transmission can be kind of garbled, just for purposes of the minutes, it might not be a bad idea, even though you're not required to do so, Mr. Chair, to do a roll call vote on each member, or excuse me, on each candidate.
Okay. Again, so should we still, where Kevin nominated Lincoln, we should still vote on that, correct?
I believe so, yes.
All right, so Kevin, your vote is?
Yes, on Heineman, yes.
Okay. Are there any others? Okay, so Tom Conley would, if as Brian said, Tom Conley, I guess I'd have to say no then, right? My vote would be a no, Brian, if I'm doing it correctly, and go back on the other ones.
Well, I mean, if Mr. DiMarzio is the only individual who's voted for for the gentleman you just concluded the interview with, and none of the other board members want to consider him on as a finalist, then essentially, you know, that individual would be eliminated as a potential appointment as a result of only one member recommending him to go on to the final vote.
Okay, so Lincoln is eliminated then. Okay, I wanted to be sure of that, so. So now we have, and we'll go back to, Ken voted for, geez, I keep losing his name.
Jeremy.
Jeremy, yeah, sorry about that. All my paperwork's a mess. And the vote was 2-1. Was it?
You taking a roll call vote on it? I mean, who knows?
Okay. Roll call. I didn't vote, so that would be a no. Tim,
Which candidate are we voting on right now?
Mr. Clottle.
No.
Okay, Jim,
No.
okay, Kevin,
Yes.
okay. So again, that's 2 for, 3 against. So now with Scott Lambiase, Jim, you were a yes. Would you say that, please? Yes.
Yes.
All right. I was a yes. Tim?
Yes.
Yes. Kenny?
No.
Okay. And Kevin?
No.
So 3-2, I would say that Scott Lambiase would be our candidate. Really, it's 3-2, and I don't. Sometimes I'd like to have a majority or have the
I
whole board.
would make a motion that we all vote for Scott. He's the evident, town manager, so I would make a motion that I will change my vote, so it would be unanimous, knowing that Jeremy Cottle would be the runner-up, I guess, because we talked about having a runner-up in case the first person does not agree to a contract. So I would make that motion. Our first and second choices would be.
I will second his motion. I agree with that. Having a runner-up would be a good idea.
All right. All those in favor of that, and Kevin, I'm going to go to you first. Sort of ask you to change your vote. You don't have to, but I'd like to be unanimous. But again, I'll leave that up to you. My vote would be yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still kind of confused here, but I'll change my vote for, continuity of the board. So I'll change my vote to a yes for Scott Lambiase
Okay,
and
and
for
Tim?
runner-up for
Well,
Jeremy Cottle.
okay, Tim?
Before we vote here, Tom. Okay, so the motion is to vote to enter the contract negotiations with Scott Lambiase and to name Jeremy Cottle as the runner-up should we not be able to reach agreement with Mr. Lambiase, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, could we also add a third where Lincoln Hindman was also put into nomination should we not reach an agreement with the first 2 candidates that we would move on to Lincoln Hindman just in case?
That'd be an amendment to Ken's motion, I think.
Sure, so.
Correct.
Like the first runner-up, it would be like Miss Congeniality.
Yeah.
I just don't want to lose these candidates should we not be able to reach agreement with either of the first 2.
I agree with you that all 3 of those people I thought were, this close to each other, and I really, I'm happy with the choice actually. So, either one of the.
I agree. So I think any of those 3. So if we were to rank them with Mr. Lambiase, Mr. Cottle, and then Mr. Hindman, should we not reach agreement?
I will accept that friendly amendment to my motion.
All right. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Tom, aye. Okay.
Aye.
Okay, so everybody, all unanimous. Thank you. So we have 3 candidates, and again, we'll that'll be vote select town manager again, contingent upon contract negotiations. So,
Can I ask a question?
sure. I have to go through all my paperwork, but go ahead.
Are you going to contact him tonight, Scott Lambiase?
I will leave that up to the board. If you would like me to contact him tonight, I would be more than happy to. The board, I'm fine. Tim?
Yep.
Okay. Jim?
I'm fine with either tonight or tomorrow, whatever time restraint you got.
All righty. Kevin?
Yeah, I'm fine with either way, today or tomorrow.
Okay, then I will do that. I will reach out to him, but pending again the negotiations, so.
And now, as far as the negotiations go, how do you want to work that? You want the whole board or subcommittee or? And I don't know if Brian. I don't know if Brian wants to weigh in on this or not too, but.
Brian can weigh in on this after. I think we should have the whole board. I think we talked about that before. One of the reasons being we could have, and I don't know, again, I keep forgetting that we're on public television or on cable access, that Ken and I, and I'll discuss this a little bit later, are staying on till the election. But then we'll be gone. Having two new people that might come in. I mean, we could certainly have a subcommittee of two or three, or probably two, I think. But I prefer the whole board do that. So, and Brian, only because Ken and I, we weren't seeking re-election, but again, I'm going to talk about a little bit later about the election is going to be later. We're going to be on here on the board for a while. I don't think Ken is going to say that he's not, and I'm not either, but I won't speak for Ken. I just did, but I won't. But I just want to make sure that I'd rather have the whole board do it. And then, we're on the limb for it, or if you want to do a subcommittee again. So, Tim, whole board or subcommittee?
Okay with the whole board.
Okay. Brian, again, just asking you, I mean, either way is okay.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I've seen boards do it both ways, where a board will meet as a body in executive session to devise a strategy prior to negotiating with the town manager candidate, and then meet with the town manager in executive session to actually engage in those negotiations. I've also seen the board form a subcommittee of, if you have a 5-member board, 2 members, sometimes maybe even 1 member, would do the negotiations and then report back to the full board again in executive session. It's really just a matter of style, how you wish to do it. And if you have 2 of the membership who are not going to be serving on after the election, I could see reasons why you'd want to have the full body there meeting with the town manager in executive session to conduct those negotiations.
Okay, so Tim, you're okay with the full board. Jim?
Yeah, I think with the situation we're in with extending the elections and not knowing, you guys aren't going to be around, I think it would be better that the whole board be involved so there is some continuity there. Yeah, the whole
Ken?
board.
All right, Ken, you feel the same way?
I actually don't. The last town manager we had, the last 2, I believe, there were subcommittees formed. It just kind of makes it a little bit easier because in the long run, the whole board has to vote on it anyways. And especially with the logistics now for meetings, it might be kind of tough to get all 5 of us and the town council and the candidate in one meeting spot. So I would probably be in favor. And I would also ask that maybe if there is a subcommittee form, you and I probably wouldn't be on it, but maybe have one person that voted for Scott, but one person who didn't, just to kind of even it up, and then they could report back to the board. That's just the way I feel. That's the way it's been done in the past.
Okay, so we got me, Tim, and Jim are for the whole board. Kevin?
I think it's a whole board decision. I do like what Ken said, though, about the subcommittee and reporting back. I'd be fine with either.
Okay, so who didn't vote for Scott?
Well, we all did in the end, but
Yeah,
Right, yeah, that's true.
but
I hate to put everybody on.
that would be Kevin. So if you were going to put a non-Scott vote, Kevin just got appointed to the.
and again, that's just an idea, just to make it fair. That's the only reason I mentioned.
No, but you're right, and Kevin, listen to what you were saying about the way, when we're having meetings and trying to conduct them and having them. So we'll go with a subcommittee, and Kevin's on it automatically. So Jim or Tim, a subcommittee to negotiate. Please let me know how you feel quickly, but.
It may be easy.
I'll be more available
I'm
than.
on it.
All right, hold on one second. Tim, just speak again, please.
I was just saying, geographically with Jim in Florida, to expedite this, I know he's planning on coming back next week, but it may be easier if myself and Kevin do it.
All right. Jim, what do you, is that okay?
That's fine if he wants it, but just to clarify, I should be back by Friday night at the latest.
Okay, we can't wait to have you back here. We really miss you.
And then he'll need to quarantine for 14 states according to 14
Right.
days.
Ah, yeah, that's true.
And the squatters
Right.
will have to get out of his house. So.
What was that, Ken?
The
Nope.
squatters will have to get out of your house now that you let everybody know when you're coming.
Now you guys are really gonna make Brian fall asleep. So Tim and Kevin will be the subcommittee to negotiate the contract, okay? So subject to a complete background check and negotiations of an employment agreement. So that'll be Tim and
Can I add one more thing to that? We mentioned about having someone, company a firm do a background check. Is that something that we want to invest in?
yes, I believe we do. I think that I think it's a wise investment. Yes. My vote would, I'm not going to take a vote on it, but my vote would be yes. Kevin,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
yep, Tim.
Yes.
All right, not a vote. It's just, but make sure I have that we cover that. Okay,
Right.
Ken?
Labor Council
thing.
at the last meeting gave us the name of someone that does it quick and reasonable, so
Yes, and I'll get in touch with him to do that.
thank you.
Could that
And
include
then-
a quarterly check also?
Yes, yep. I believe it does, Jim, yes.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. Discussion and possible vote to offer extension of contract of town manager Rick LaFond. So that's next. Any comment, gentlemen?
I'm not opposed to extending that will if he's available to until we get a contract with the next town manager and find out when he can come in. As long as it's fairly quickly.
Right. Okay, and I have, hold on. You know what? It's tough when you're sitting at home and all your papers in your office. It's driving me crazy.
I know that when we met with Scott Lambiase, he mentioned, amongst other things, he was going to give us his pizza dough recipe. But besides that, he also mentioned that he was going to be able to start in 2 weeks, give or take. He wanted to give us 2-week notice and maybe do kind of juggle both jobs. He is the director of municipal services in Duxbury, but they are aware that he was up for this. So he's already talked to the town manager there. So he said he'd be ready in about 2 weeks. Of course, that is obviously depending upon the contract and the credit in the background check that we talked about. So.
Right, so what we have, and I did talk to Rick. So the discussion and possible vote to offer an extension would be salary only, no benefits, like extra time off, vacation, none of that. It will be on an at-will basis. Excuse me, and notice period to be determined by the board. And notice period, we talked about that. We'd at least give him sort of 2 weeks notice. And I think we agreed on that, but that's what I would do. Again, the discussion is just to offer that extension. And any questions on that?
If I can,
He's currently,
Go ahead.
he's currently under contract until the 30th anyway.
That is correct.
Right. So then we would be offering him an at will for a period after that.
That is correct.
So, and with a 2-week minimum, that would leave us till mid-May.
Right. To be fair, I think we discussed that it'd have to be a 2-week minimum, so.
Right. So if he were to agree to the at will, and we were to revoke it immediately, then that would be 2 weeks after April 30th.
Say that again, Tim.
If we were to offer him an at will contract, an employee at will contract, following the separation agreement that we have that extends to April 30th, then that would leave him till 2 weeks into May, correct?
No, that's not the way I'm looking at it. If Scott comes in, or the new town, I'm going to say the new town manager in case negotiations fall apart or whatever. But if one of them, the new town manager couldn't come in till May 3rd or whatever, it's 2 weeks after that. That's how I'm looking at it. Anybody have?
But
Go ahead.
So when it's kind of contingent on when Scott or the new town manager would start then, correct? Because the separation agreement would kick out at that point?
Yeah, I think it would be based on when Scott came in, and then we give, Rick a
Right now,
2-week notice.
Right now, there's a 30-day overlap, correct? If the new town manager comes in, there's a 30-day overlap if the new town manager wanted that. So if Scott started if the new town manager started in 2 weeks or started April 30th, that would push that date, depending, correct?
I believe according to the separation agreement, Kevin, it's April 30th is the cutoff date, even with the 30 days after the hiring.
Okay, I thought if we had hired a new town manager in the meantime, that it wouldn't go all the way to April 30th. Right? I thought if a new town manager was hired, there would be 30 days where they were both on as a transition.
Right, but what
I thought we gave him the option if, I thought the understanding was we give him the time to transition, but it would be up to the new town manager at what point he no longer needed Rick around. So in other words, if we give him 2 weeks extension into that transition period, and after a week, the new town manager says, "Hey, I'm all set," well, then he's free to go. Rick would be free to go. That was my understanding. Am I wrong here?
Could I say something?
Go ahead. Yep.
A couple things I think we're talking about two different things. One, the separation agreement is until April 30th.
Right, and what we're doing now is offering him an extension.
I know. And in the separation agreement, it said that if a town manager was hired before his separation agreement ended, that he could, he would be willing to stay on for a month. Okay, but that ends on the 30th. The whole point I'm trying to make is we don't need to make this decision tonight. We can wait 2 weeks and make the decision, because at that point we'll know when the new town manager starts. We'll probably have a good tentative date as when he's starting, and then we can take that vote at that point. And things can change in that 2 weeks. We all know that the town manager is up for other positions. He's actively seeking jobs. So in the next 2 weeks, this vote that we're taking tonight might be a moot point. The board has kind of agreed to say, yes, we'd like to keep him on because we don't know what the situation is. But 2 weeks from now, we might know the situation.
True.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, if we don't come to an agreement with Scott, I mean, now we're pushed back even further. Do we extend? Then we should worry about an extension.
And the other thing that comes into play is we have to support the residents of the town in that we can't leave this town with a new town manager that doesn't know anything. Also, we can't leave them without a town manager. So, I mean, this whole COVID-19 and the budget process is still up in the air, and it may require some. I was very impressed today by the email received from the town manager, listing all the things that are being done by the financial officers group. I mean, it's amazing the things they have to take in consideration for the budget. This is changing all the time. So I think it's very important that maybe we push off this decision for a week or two when we get a better, clearer picture as to how our town manager situation, the new town manager, is going to work. Because I think Scott actually looked forward to working with Rick. He was the one that was the most enthusiastic about it. The last one that we just met with didn't seem to be that. But I know that Scott didn't seem to have a problem with it. So that's the point I'm trying to make. We don't need to make. We can make this decision tonight, but we don't need to. You'd hate to take a vote, and then it could be that it's a mute vote because Rick leaves.
Yeah, and the agenda does say possible vote, Ken. Thank you for pointing that out. It's April 6th. It's a Monday. We, as selectmen, after we get this done, we still have a lot of things to do. So I'm trying to check my calendar because I don't know if we want to go like till next Monday to the 13th and then go to the 27th, or do we want to like do the first week and the third week? And again, this doesn't have to be decided right now either, but go ahead, Ken. Thank you.
Maybe we could leave it at the discretion of the subcommittee. It's going to be meeting for the budget because they may, within a week, have a recommendation before the board, and then we could base the meeting around that.
Okay. All right.
So that's the point I'm trying to make.
Okay. No, very good. So the agenda said possible vote, so we don't have to vote. So unless somebody makes a motion, then I'd just rather move on then.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, Tom, but you have spoken to the current town manager, or you can say what you want, and he might.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I have. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so.
Guys, I'm sorry, Tom.
Yes,
just talking about
Assistant Chairman, Vice Chairman, what can I do for you?
Talking about our next meeting, we would really need to. There's no executive session for the subcommittee to get direction from the board on where we want to be with our contract negotiations. Before we were to meet with Mr. Lambancy, I think the board should meet an executive session to give us some direction on what the board is thinking.
Yes, and Brian, I thought Brian looked like you agreed with that.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that would normally be the course. If there's a subcommittee that's been appointed, the subcommittee would meet with the Board of Selectmen in executive session to get a flavor of what the marching orders are and what the authority is at the bargaining table.
Okay, thank you.
So Tom, with that in mind, I think we should meet next Monday so we can expedite this if nothing else, for executive session at the latest,
okay.
If not sooner.
All right, so I will schedule, I will put up an agenda for the Board of Selectmen, and we'll see where we're going. We may have a regular meeting and then go into executive session. We'll go from there because there's some things that other selectmen want to discuss that is of interest to the public, I think. So I will make something for April 13th. Okay. Yeah.
At that point, you may know when Scott can start.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's true.
So if that's the case, then you can put this on the agenda.
Okay. All righty.
I appreciate you making it for next Monday. As I said, we'll be coming back, and I'm not sure what day or where I'll be. I don't want to end up like Tim on the phone because we can't get a connection in a motel.
Okay. All right. So next is discussion of postponed annual election. And I did got a letter from Leanne Leanne Adams, the town clerk. The Board of Registrars had a meeting yesterday, which was March 31st, to discuss possible postponement of the ATE annual town election. Attaches a certificate of vote signed by the registrars with a new date of June 23rd, 2020. Leanne has that right, so I just wanted to, and it may be out there in the public, I'm not sure, but I want to make sure it got on our agenda and a little bit of discussion, whatever, but the annual town election will be the 23rd of June. So Ken and I, him and I are both up for election. Ken, I'm going to stay until the 23rd, and I hope that you will do the same.
If I don't get recalled, yes.
Okay. Okay, I didn't think of that. If I get recalled, I'll join you. So, all right, but very good. So
I'd like to make one, not a statement, but a point on the town meeting. I mean, on the election.
yep.
I'm not really sure why it's not on a Saturday. And not that troubles me, just that town elections have always been on a Saturday, and I'm sure there's reasons for that. And I have a feeling that, and I wasn't a big fan of that, but I think it's at a function hall, and I wonder.
That's correct. Yeah, Ken, I did hear from Leanne. Again, it's in my paperwork. The function hall is booked all time, and she the only date they had was like that Tuesday. So that I think it's Tuesday. That's why they went to the 23rd. And we voted to approve having town election at that hall. So
Yes, some of you did. The Board of Registrars, a volunteer board, and I appreciate the work. I just want to make it known that, I mean, you run for the town elections are for people that are volunteering, you know, and it's hard to get days off, take a whole Tuesday off if you're running, you know, if you're just a regular, you know, regular guy just working. You're not a politician. You know, I don't care what people say about you and I, Tom. We're not politicians. We're just
there you go.
I think it's tough that people running for office and trying to help the town probably have to take a day off from work if they have a contested race. I just don't think it's a good precedent to set. That's all. And
yeah,
I understand that, you know, the town meetings have been switched to a new voting place, but it kind of puts a wrench into it when this happened. We didn't expect this to happen, but you know, that's all I have to say. I just want to make it known that I'm not a big fan of Tuesday town elections. That's all.
well, I wasn't a big fan of having that at a hall, but it is what it is. But and I'm just trying to find it, and I apologize, but Leanne sent a memo because there will be they're going to do something about you know, mailing in you know, mail-ins or whatever. So let's see. No, that's a different one.
I agree with
Yeah.
I agree with Ken on having them on a Saturday.
Yeah, there is a reason. I apologize because I don't want to put Leanne on the spot or the Board of Registrars, because we're all going through a lot, and I know that she is too. So,
Don't get me wrong. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not criticizing their work or their vote. I'm just not happy that the town election is on a Tuesday. That's all.
right? No, and you said that, Ken. I certainly understand that. So, I'll try and I do have an email from her. I'll get back to her, and I'll have it for our next meeting on the.
Is there any alternatives? Like is there any alternatives that they could do to afford people to vote on a Saturday? Whether, you know, like the Saturday before, like a early voting station at town hall or anything like that?
Kevin, I can't answer that. She did send me something about mail-ins, and there might have been something about that. I don't have it right in front of me, so I'll get it and I'll report on that the 13th. Okay, that's all I can do.
Thank you.
All right.
And I'm sure that Leanne's great about this, that she will open up the town hall for early voting and the absentee ballots. So, I mean, I'm not worried about that.
Right. Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, the act that the governor recently signed allowing municipalities to reschedule their local elections included provisions in the act for early voting to make it even more accessible to people in light of the postponements.
Okay. The only problem will be is if we don't, hopefully all this will be over before June 23rd.
That's right.
You know, but if it's not, I don't know what will happen, but I'll talk to Leanne or check her email and I'll get back to you all on the 13th. So
The president said it'll be over by then, so.
okay, let's not go there. I hope it is. I hope it's over tomorrow. So that's our discussion on that. Any more discussion about that? And we're gonna have a quick discussion on the possible postponement of town meeting. Our town meeting is scheduled for May 18th. We don't have to make a decision on that either now. This is just discussion. I've been in touch with the town moderator. I've been listening to the governor. One of the candidate that was on this evening, you know that the governor's budget is going to, now the word I want to say is decimated, but it's going to be reduced. So we're going to have to plan on that for town meeting. One of the problems that we have with town meeting, not a problem, to me it is, 225 registered voters. And they're trying to, if we can have a town meeting, they're trying to reduce, the moderator has put in legislation or from his moderator group to the governor to try and make it either 50 or less, or say 36. But even the way things are right now with social distancing and everything else, they might get a zero quorum, and again that'd be the board that I think our board that will try and vote on that. But I just wanted to get that out there, one, to the public, and I know it's out there, but to you gentlemen on the board, and again have a discussion on that. So
As you said, we don't have to make a decision right now on that, but if we do have to postpone it, I would agree to postpone it beyond the election, just to keep it in step with past years. We always have the election, and then 3 or 4 weeks later we have the town meeting.
right, I think the only thing that would concern me is if we don't have it by July 1st. Again, Brian, I haven't checked the governor's, everything that he sent out, but if we don't have it by July 1st, we might be asked to work on 112 budget, and not knowing what that budget's going to be. So we're going to, and it might be based sort of, and I don't think it'll be based on 2020, but it might be. But so we have to keep that in mind that if we have it after July 1st.
And if that's I mean, I see obviously, a lot of towns postponing their town meetings, and they're all pushing it as close as far as I understand it to June 30 as they can, in the hopes that this situation is in the rearview mirror at that point in time, and so that they're not into fiscal 21 without even having done anything relative to fiscal 21 at the time they hold the meeting.
Right, because we have to vote on warrant articles, and we have to get them out, and there's a lot of work that that has to be done, and hopefully, like Jim said, after the election, which is the 23rd of Tuesday, so the 30th, I don't have my calendar again, but the 30th is 30th is a Thursday, so I'm sure we can maybe have a town meeting on the third, anytime, I guess, so. But again, I've been discussing it with Sean, the moderator, and again, listening to the governor because of the district that I work for, because we've got to prepare for that. We've got to prepare for cuts, and where that money's going to come from, we don't know. So, but anyway, that I wanted to bring that up also. So, any other comments on that?
If I could, Tom, in our general update from the town manager, he talked about he's speaking to the finance committee chair and the moderator this week to discuss the matter of delaying the town meeting. Due to our later town meeting date, a decision is not yet necessary, but should be considered. This does have obviously financial planning and administrative implications that need to be assessed. So he's going to be talking about multiple times this week. They'll be going over it. So we should have a bit of
Right.
next Monday.
All right, and he did, and it's not on the agenda because we got it today. He did do a general update. I'm assuming everyone got it. Kevin, did you get it?
Yes.
Okay, Jim, did you get it? Okay, I just want to be sure. Tim, you got yours, right?
Yes.
All right, so I don't want to go over, but again, we'll do this the 13th, and I'll ask him to provide. And that's why I said we'll probably have a Board of Selectmen meeting and then an executive session after that for the 13th. So, but he provided a lot. He did like Ken said, he did a good job on providing us with the information that he's dealing with right now. So, and he is at a Board of, I don't know if he is right now still, but I know he's at the Board of Health meeting that they're doing right now. So.
No, I can tell you the Board of Health meeting got over at 6:28, and we're still here, but that's another matter altogether. But
Really?
Oh yeah. Only because I know someone in this house is on the Board of Health, and he came in. One thing that I had asked Rick to look into, and it is on his update, and maybe something I think it might. And Tom, you probably know better than I do on this. Might require the Board of Selectmen's vote, but I mentioned the possibility of maybe extending the waiving the penalties and interest waivers of the taxes with everybody. The situation is so tough, a lot of people out of work. So I mentioned about that, and he was going to talk with the financial group about that. So I think it might require a vote of the selectmen at some point, but I'm not positive.
Yeah, and not only a vote of the selectmen, that might be something in the legislature. I was a treasurer collector for 5 towns, so and whenever we tried to, and we did, we tried. It always seemed difficult, but I agree with you. I'm hoping that we can, and I'll check with Rick and the people, the treasurer collectors that I'm still in touch with to see what they're doing, and I'll report that back to Monday night.
Yeah, Tom. Last week, the state legislature passed that with the vote of the select board in the town that we could do that. You may want to check with town council since I failed law school, but that's my belief is that we can.
Okay, Brian, did any of that? Are you familiar with?
I would just want to circle back to the town meeting discussion, if I could, real quick, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Before, it's easier to postpone your meeting before the warrant is posted. So if there's going to be a decision made relative to postponement, you would, I think, just for ease of doing so, you would want to do it before the warrant's posted. In that circumstance, all the board would have to do is just meet and vote under the changes to the legislation that was assigned by the governor. If it's posted, then there's a little bit more of a process that you have to go through. You can still postpone it, but it's always easier to postpone before the warrant posts.
Okay.
Good point.
Thank you. And on Tim's, did you hear Tim's comment about penalties and interest on taxes?
Yeah, and I think that might be something that's also covered in the legislation. I'd have to take a look at that, but that's certainly something that we can look at and get back to you.
Okay, and I'll look at it too. And Tim, I appreciate that. I didn't see it in some of the stuff that I had, but I don't doubt you because I know you study a lot of things, and so I'll look and I'll get back to everybody on the 13th. So,
So we're meeting next Monday night.
yes,
Right.
I will schedule a meeting for Monday night. Is there anything that we want on the agenda? I really want to try and make sure that the things that we want on get on, and make sure that I don't forget them. But I will remind all of you that you certainly have the right to contact the town manager and ask for something to be put on the agenda. I know that he will check with me, and if I have an issue with it, I will get back to you. But anyone can do that, and I want everyone, to know that. So, Jim, if you've got something that you want on the agenda and I forget it or whatever, you can contact Rick to get it on, and we have to get it on, the Friday, because our Friday, 24 hours or 40 hours before we post it. So not just you, Jim, and that's to everybody, but I just used you as an example. So.
Tom,
Yes, Ken.
when you speak to these, the candidates tonight and tomorrow, can you just let them know that it was a tough decision and thank them all? I'm sure you're gonna do this anyways, but just thank them all and, that's all. Just,
No, I was only contacting Scott.
okay, that's fine.
No, no. Yeah, that's a tough job, but I just want to be careful because with Jeremy, I really don't want to call. Do you know what I'm saying, Ken? Because if something happens with Scott, he's our second choice. I mean, would you want me to call him and say, "Hey, you're our second choice"?
I don't know if Brian has any advice on this. I don't know, but I mean, you can,
I certainly do. I mean, I've seen that tack taken with other boards where they'll contact each finalist, say, in certain circumstances, thank you very much, but the board has decided to go in a different direction. In other cases, like you have here, where Jeremy is essentially the second highest vote getter, you could communicate to him that it was a very difficult choice. The board had made a decision, though, to offer the job to Scott, subject to various preconditions. And we would, sincerely hope that if we're not able to get through those preconditions with Scott, that we would be able to reach back out to you and talk to you about, you're becoming the next town manager in Abington.
Okay, great. All right, then I will do that. I'll reach out to all the candidates.
and, as I spoke at last meeting too, it's happened before here in Abington, where it's the first choice.
Yes, you did.
So, not uncommon, so.
That is true. That is true. So, anybody want anything that I'm missing, for the agenda, the 13th? And I want to get Brian out of here, so no. Jim, go ahead.
I wanted to say one more thing, Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Sure, please do.
We were talking a minute ago about the scheduling of your election and the town meeting, and we did, as a firm, provide an e-update to all of our municipal clients on the 3rd of April that went into some detail as to the changes to the legislation, and it does speak to what would happen if a town is forced to have a town meeting after the end of the fiscal year. And what you had commented upon was right in that you would basically be operating off of a 1/12 budget from your prior fiscal year.
That's what I thought.
Time as you could convene the town meeting for purposes of appropriating or establishing a budget for the upcoming for fiscal 21. But that was something that was disseminated on the 3rd of April. And if you didn't receive it, then I would check with Rick.
I think I did, because I think that's where I sort of said the 1/12 budget. I thought I had read that somewhere.
Yeah.
Working for school district, I hear that too. So sometimes I get them jumbled, but it's the same, legislation. So
Sure.
for not just towns, but for, school districts and stuff, so. And thank you for that. I appreciate that. So, but, Tim, anything for the agenda that you need or that I might be missing?
No, I think we have enough for now.
All right, Jim?
We're talking about the agenda. I don't know if it's feasible or not, but I'd like to get an update from the subcommittee for the police study if we can.
Okay, no, I'm gonna make sure that's on the agenda, Kevin.
Nothing at the time, at the moment.
Yep, okay. Ken, anything you're thinking of?
No, I'll just wish everybody a happy Easter and make a motion to adjourn.
All right. There's been a motion made. Seconded?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you all very much. And I wish Abington to stay healthy and stay strong. Good night.
Good night.